saw you tweeted out that you had watched the Manti documentary called Untold. I saw it as well, two-part thing on the controversy of the former Notre Dame linebacker who got catfished by someone who claimed to be his girlfriend. This went on for a long time. The person who claimed to be the girlfriend then made up an elaborate death for the girlfriend. Manti Te'o believed this to have occurred, stayed in touch with so-called family members of his deceased girlfriend, and then found out around the Heisman Trophy ceremony after they played in the national championship game, and this was a major national story of which he talked about how his grandmother and the girlfriend died, and it was motivating him throughout the season.
Died on the same day.
Yes, died on the same day. And then a report came out because it was found that she never existed. And he then had to try to explain this and became the literal butt of every joke on earth. And I would say it probably derailed his NFL career. You know, that I'm sure that was not an easy thing to walk into the league with. He ended up not being a first-round pick, I think largely because this became a massive controversy. It dominated him at the combine. And it's probably very hard. I can only imagine how hard that is to explain. He does a very long, in-depth interview about it. The person who catfished him does a very long, in-depth interview about it. And then there's a lot of others, including the people from Deadspin, who figured out the story. And they go through the whole piece of how elaborately they went through every detail before they actually released the whole thing and explained their motivations for releasing the thing. And it turned him into a national laughingstock. And for a while, people were wondering, why was he part of something he made up? Because it was so unbelievable. And I think the thing that really stood out to me, too, was when they asked him about being catfished, the first thing he said was, let's talk about this. No one knew what that was when this happened, and you have to remember that. That, like, his incident that became national news bore out a word, a term, and actually a television show that was popular called Catfish.
Yeah, it was a movie, then turned into a television show. Yep.
So I felt bad for him after watching this, especially the part where he seems like a genuinely nice guy who genuinely believed that he had a girlfriend on the internet, albeit as the thing is going, now granted you know the ending, but as it's going along, the fact that he never FaceTimed with her, never video chatted, never met her in person, should to me have been a massive red flag. He seems like someone who is very devout and believes people and trusts people, and it is hard not to feel terrible for him because he became, like, if you just say his name now, what's the first thing you think of? Nobody thinks of the fact that he was the runner-up as a linebacker for the Heisman Trophy. They think about his fake girlfriend.
Right.
It's terrible.
No, I mean, and I actually, I don't know, are we ruining anything by talking about his feelings towards them if you still want to watch the documentary?
I don't think so. I mean, everybody knows the story. This, honestly, like, you're going in, you know it. It's just but you will get, it's very well done.
And I would just say
it's very good.
This is a guy that could feel so bitter towards everybody, that could hate everybody, and I wouldn't blame him for a second for doing it. And he's the complete opposite. He's like, if the people that, if the person that did this to me is watching, I forgive them. Like, I hope their family's doing well. Like, he went almost like too nice. Like, I couldn't believe there wasn't an ounce of animosity towards now Naya, I think is her name. Sopo. I forget what her original name was.
I mean, the spoiler is this was a guy by the name of Renaya.
That's right, Renaya.
Tuiasosopo, who actually has a lineage of NFL players, and they go through the players that are in this guy's family.
Right.
She's transitioned to a woman.
Yes.
And that's the part that's new.
Yeah.
And she does the interview as Naya.
Yeah.
She's because it's modern now.
Here's the thing that I actually didn't like about the entire overlay of it. They interviewed her. She did not apologize ever, by the way. She did not show much remorse
No.
if any, at all.
No,
And
she's a
in fact-
disturbed person.
And in
the
fact,
things that she did are disturbing. And she admits she knew what she was doing was wrong on some
Yeah.
level, but did it anyway and can't really explain why.
right. And then also, they don't explicitly say this, but they really try to blame what she did on her transition, and that made me feel kind of like those are two separate things that happened here. Don't mold them into one. Like, she talked about how, like, she wanted to be a woman, and this kind of, like, helped that along, I guess.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it right. Just because you're trying to figure out who you are doesn't mean it's okay to scam somebody.
Right.
Like that,
I mean,
that's
look.
that's where I came across this. And look, the people who produced it, they honestly didn't try to. I feel like there was really no narrative. They just kind of let them speak for themselves. But there was a little too much of like, oh, she's very peaceful in her own skin now. I don't care. Manti lost out on millions of dollars
That's right.
because you screwed up his mental well-being and nobody looked at him the same after a certain point. Like,
Yes.
I wanted more justice for Manti after all of it, and I didn't really get any of
And
that.
the weird part is, like, you know, because I was sitting there, like, all along, and I remember, you know, when this was happening, and I was working in the national media at the time, and it became a massive deal.
Right,
like,
right.
And they showed, like, all the nighttime shows were talking about it, and the news shows were, I mean, it was a massive, massive deal. Like, you know, and I still have a hard time with this part of it. Like, how did you have a girlfriend that you never met or literally saw
Yeah.
for years? Like, that's preposterous to me. That said, like, the weird part about it is, and this is why I think he's just kind of genuinely a nice guy, and I feel bad for him. It wasn't like this person was scamming him for money or gifts.
Right.
It really was literally an attention thing.
Yes.
It had nothing, like, it'd be one thing if it was just like, what, you didn't figure out when she asked for a car?
That's right.
That you never met her and
exactly.
now you're buying her a car, or she asked for money because someone is quote unquote sick in her family. Like, none of that ever happened. Like, there's none of the, I bought this person gifts, I bought them trips, I bought them, none of that. Like, none of, and he was clearly heading that way. So this, it's weird. It's such a weird story. This person really just liked being this fake personality and enjoyed the attention of having someone who was truly in love with her. Like, and that's it.
Yeah. And
It's weird.
He does
Like,
mention this during the documentary that he said he had trouble dating other women because they never really adhered to his schedule, because he was constantly training, as you said. He was devout Christian, like you're Catholic. He
Latter-day Saints, I think is what
okay,
it was.
that's
Yeah.
what it was. Okay,
I think so, yeah. Because they made a deal of,
that's
like,
right, that's
would he
right,
fit
yes.
in at Notre Dame because he chose to
That's
go,
right.
he's Latter-day Saints. Yeah.
And he harped on it for at least a second, saying, like, I had trouble dating people because they didn't realize that, like, when I'm unavailable, I'm really unavailable and I'm doing my own thing. And I think that's where he fell into a routine with somebody.
Yes.
And even though he didn't meet them, I also want to say this too, like, you couldn't just FaceTime back then either. That didn't exist, I don't think. Like, I think you could video chat,
You
but
could
it wasn't,
video chat
but
through
it was,
Facebook, I think.
but it still
which is where
wasn't-
a lot of this relationship was happening.
but it still wasn't the same as it was now, where you can literally pick
Yeah.
up your phone and hit a button and you're face to face with somebody like that. Like, this was a little more. We were at that, like, transition point where FaceTime was literally a year or two away, I think, and that way that really would have easily solved everything.
The idea, though, that you would be in a relationship to that degree without ever having been face to face with someone seems preposterous.
I
to
agree,
me.
but then you
It
also
just
hear
does.
that they talked on the phone all the time, and the voice that he did was insanely good. Like, Dr. Phil makes an appearance on
Dr.
that.
Phil makes an appearance on it. Yes.
Like,
You know, and then the other thing too, like, and then the other part for him, you know, he got accused of being gay because it ended up being a guy, right? And so here's the tricky part with that. Probably in his community, probably in his religion, you know, whether he is or he isn't, that's a difficult position to be in.
That's right.
You know, unfortunately, and that's just reality. So now it's a double whammy.
Right.
You're dumb for being duped by a guy who's pretending to be a girl that you never met and you're in love with, and then dedicated a season to her fake death.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be a guy, which means, are you gay? Because we've actually never seen you with a woman, so let's start asking these questions of you. I mean, I can't even imagine.
And the mainstream,
I can't. And then the mainstream media has got helicopters flying over your house wondering, are you part of this scam? Why would you be?
Right. The other mainstream media jump, too, was one that I had just forgotten about until I watched, was the people speculating, oh, well, you wanted everyone to seem like you had a girlfriend because you are gay. Like, it went the other lane of like, oh, well, you already knew he was a guy, but you wanted everyone to seem like you were dating somebody so they don't find out that you're gay. Like, Katie Couric asked him on TV, are you gay? Like, what?
Yeah. Yes.
This is a completely different time 10 years ago. I mean, that's
the whole
insane.
thing. It's the whole thing's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. But